"Excuse me, but we don't serve people like you." The words hung in the air like a dagger, sharp and deliberate. They were spoken by Clarissa, the impeccably dressed manager of one of New York City's most exclusive luxury boutiques. Her tone was calm, almost polite, but it carried the weight of judgment and arrogance. The recipient of this stinging remark? A woman dressed in a simple beige trench coat and flat shoes, her hair tied back in a low bun. She stood quietly, holding a soft leather handbag that, while elegant, seemed too modest for a place dripping with opulence. Around her, other customers paused mid-conversation, their gazes flitting curiously to the scene unfolding near the boutique's sparkling glass display. It was a tableau of wealth and privilege, gleaming marble floors, crystal chandeliers casting soft light on racks of couture dresses priced higher than most mortgages. But this woman didn't seem to fit. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice calm but firm, her accent faintly European. Clarissa offered a tight smile, the kind that masked disdain. "We cater to a certain clientele here. Ma'am, perhaps another store would better suit your needs." The implication was clear, cutting through the polite veneer like a knife. The boutique manager didn't need to say the words outright. Her message was loud and clear. "You don't belong here." The woman's eyes didn't waver, though a faint flush rose to her cheeks. She opened her mouth as if to respond but seemed to think better of it. Instead, she offered a faint smile. "Thank you for your time," she said softly, before turning and walking out of the store. The soft click of the boutique's glass doors shutting behind her echoed through the suddenly hushed space. The quiet departure was almost anticlimactic, but it left a ripple of tension in its wake. Some customers exchanged amused glances, their expressions a mix of curiosity and quiet agreement. Others resumed their shopping, as if such incidents were common in a place where exclusivity was a badge of honor. "She didn't even try to argue," one customer murmured, adjusting her diamond bracelet as she picked up a silk scarf. "She probably realized she was out of her depth," another replied, smirking. Clarissa, the manager, straightened her blazer and turned to her assistant with a look of satisfaction. "You have to maintain standards," she said in a low voice. "This isn't just a store, it's a sanctuary for people who understand quality." Her assistant, a young woman named Emily, nodded hesitantly but didn't reply. Something about the encounter didn't sit right with her, but she didn't dare voice her thoughts. This was Clarissa's domain, after all, and questioning her decisions was out of the question. As the boutique settled back into its usual rhythm of hushed conversations and the rustle of designer fabrics, no one gave much thought to the woman who had just left. To them, she was simply an anomaly, a person who had wandered in by mistake, unaware of the unwritten rules that govern places like this. But what no one realized was that the story was far from over, because that quiet, unassuming woman was Melania Trump. Though she had once been the First Lady of the United States, she had entered the boutique without fanfare, her security detail discreetly stationed outside. She hadn't announced herself or demanded special treatment. She had simply walked in, curious to browse the collection, only to be met with cold judgment and outright dismissal. And as she walked away from the boutique, her mind wasn't filled with anger or embarrassment. Instead, she felt a deep sense of clarity, a realization about how people judge others based on surface impressions. This wasn't the first time Melania had encountered prejudice or assumptions based on appearance. Her journey from a small town in Slovenia to the White House had been marked by countless instances where she had been underestimated, judged, or dismissed. But she had learned long ago that true strength wasn't about proving people wrong in the moment. It was about how you chose to respond. As she stepped into her car, she glanced back at the boutique, the soft glow of its chandeliers visible through the glass doors. She didn't feel anger toward Clarissa or the others inside. Instead, she felt a quiet resolve. Sometimes, people need to be reminded of the value of kindness, she thought. What no one in that boutique could have anticipated was that Melania Trump would return the very next day, and that her return would leave everyone in that store utterly speechless. The morning sun gleamed against the towering glass windows of the luxury boutique. Inside, the air was filled with soft classical music and the faint scent of high-end perfumes. As always, Clarissa stood behind the counter, radiating confidence in her fitted blazer, meticulously styled hair, and her ever-present aura of authority. For her, today was just another day of catering to Manhattan's elite clientele. As the first customers of the day trickled in, Clarissa greeted them with her signature smile, a blend of charm and superiority. She had long prided herself on maintaining the boutique's exclusivity, Only those who belonged deserved her attention. But by mid-morning, something unusual happened. The boutique doors swung open, and in stepped a woman whose presence immediately drew the attention of everyone in the room. It was the same woman from the day before, the one Clarissa had dismissed without a second thought. This time, however, she looked different. Gone were the modest trench coat and flats. Instead, the woman now wore a tailored white suit that seemed to glow under the boutique's lighting. Her understated elegance spoke volumes, exuding the kind of confidence and sophistication that couldn't be faked. Behind her, a small entourage of two quietly followed, both dressed in professional attire, their demeanor calm but unmistakably authoritative. Clarissa's eyes narrowed as recognition dawned. It was her. What is she doing back here? Clarissa thought, a twinge of annoyance creeping into her otherwise calm exterior. The woman walked directly toward the counter, her movements graceful and assured. For a moment, there was silence. Even the other customers seemed to hold their breath, sensing the tension in the air. "Good morning," the woman said, her voice warm but firm. Clarissa hesitated, her usual poise momentarily shaken. "Good morning," she replied, her tone careful. "I'm here to meet with the boutique owner," the woman continued, her gaze steady. "I believe they're expecting me." Clarissa blinked, caught off guard. The boutique owner? No one had mentioned a meeting to her. "I wasn't informed of any appointment," she said, forcing a polite smile. The woman nodded, unbothered. "That's all right. I can wait." Without another word, she turned and began to browse the store, her movements deliberate and unhurried. Her presence was magnetic. Every eye in the boutique was on her, and the room buzzed with whispered speculations. As Clarissa scrambled to make sense of the situation, the boutique's owner, a distinguished older man named Mr. Adler, appeared from his office at the back of the store. His face lit up the moment he saw the woman. "Mrs. Trump," he exclaimed, striding forward with outstretched hands. Clarissa froze. Mrs. Trump? The realization hit her like a thunderclap. This wasn't just any customer. This was Melania Trump, the former First Lady of the United States. Mr. Adler reached her and shook her hand warmly, his demeanor one of utmost respect. "It's an honor to have you here. Thank you for taking the time to visit our boutique." Melania smiled graciously. "Thank you, Mr. Adler. I've always admired your work, and I thought it was time to see it in person." Clarissa's stomach churned. The woman she had so casually dismissed the day before was not only someone of immense significance, but also someone Mr. Adler clearly valued deeply. As Melania and Mr. Adler engaged in conversation, Clarissa hovered nearby, her usually unshakable confidence now replaced by a gnawing sense of dread. She hoped, prayed, that Melania wouldn't bring up yesterday's incident. But then, Melania turned to her. "Ah, I believe we've met," Melania said, her tone neutral but pointed. Clarissa forced a smile, her cheeks burning. "Yes, I believe we have." Mr. Adler glanced between them, his brow furrowing. "Is there something I should know?" Melania hesitated, her gaze lingering on Clarissa for a moment. Then, she smiled, genuinely this time. "It's nothing important," she said softly, "just a small misunderstanding." Clarissa felt a wave of relief, though it was short-lived. But misunderstandings can teach us valuable lessons, don't you think? Melania continued, her eyes locking with Clarissa's. Clarissa nodded quickly, unable to meet her gaze. Of course. What happened next took everyone by surprise. Instead of dwelling on the past, Melania shifted the conversation to focus on the boutique's work. She praised Mr. Adler's designs, asking thoughtful questions and expressing genuine interest in the craftsmanship. Her warmth and grace were disarming, leaving even Clarissa struggling to reconcile this woman with the person she had so readily dismissed. At one point, Melania picked up a handbag, a stunning piece made of hand-stitched leather, and turned to Clarissa. "This is beautiful," she said. "What can you tell me about it?" Clarissa hesitated, caught off guard by the direct question. But Melania's tone was kind, encouraging even, and slowly, Clarissa found herself relaxing as she explained the piece's intricate details. By the end of their interaction, the tension between them had eased, replaced by a sense of mutual understanding. Before leaving, Melania made a significant purchase, a gesture that spoke not only to her appreciation for the boutique, but also her willingness to move past the previous day's encounter. As she prepared to leave, she turned to Mr. Adler and said something that left everyone in the room speechless. "You have a wonderful store," she said. "But true luxury isn't just about beautiful things. It's about how you make people feel. I hope everyone who walks through these doors is made to feel special, because kindness is the greatest luxury of all. Her words hung in the air long after she left, a quiet reminder of the power of grace and humility. For Clarissa, the experience was humbling. She had always prided herself on her ability to read people, to determine who belonged and who didn't. But Melania's visit had shown her just how flawed those judgments could be. In the days that followed, Clarissa found herself reevaluating not only her approach to customers, but also her own values. She realized that true exclusivity wasn't about keeping people out. It was about welcoming them in and treating them with dignity and respect. As the boutique door gently closed behind Melania Trump, the room settled into an almost eerie silence. The soft chime of the doorbell faded, but its echo lingered in the ears of Clarissa and the staff. Standing motionless behind the counter, Clarissa's polished facade began to crumble. For a manager so confident in her ability to command a room and project authority, she found herself feeling exposed and vulnerable. Her mind raced back to Melania's calm yet profoundly impactful words, "Kindness is the greatest luxury." At first, Clarissa felt relief that the encounter had not turned into a public scandal. She had braced herself for a confrontation, a sharp retort, a cold dismissal, or even worse, a viral social media post that could jeopardize her career. But instead, Melania's poised grace had left an imprint on her heart, far stronger than any rebuke could have. What began as a single moment of shame now swelled into a larger wave of introspection. For the first time in years, Clarissa found herself questioning not just her professional practices but the person she had become. That evening, Clarissa returned to her sleek, minimalist apartment. The glossy white interiors that once reflected her pride in her carefully curated life now felt cold and sterile. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat by the window, staring out at the glowing cityscape. Her thoughts spiraled, revisiting the day's events over and over again. She thought of Melania's first visit, the disdain she had felt toward the former First Lady's unassuming appearance, and her rushed dismissal of someone she assumed would never afford their collection. How had she become the type of person to equate someone's worth with their clothing or status? As her wine glass emptied, Clarissa opened her laptop and began typing an email to her staff. The words came slowly at first, but soon they flowed as if a dam had broken. "Dear team, I need to apologize, not just to you, but to everyone we've served in this boutique. Today, I made a mistake that reminded me of a fundamental truth. Luxury isn't about exclusivity. It's about the way we make people feel, and I failed to uphold that. Starting tomorrow, I want us to create an environment where everyone, no matter who they are or how they look, feels welcome, respected, and valued. Let's redefine what luxury means. Together, sincerely." Clarissa, when she had sinned, she exhaled deeply. It was just the beginning, but for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope. In the days and weeks that followed, Clarissa's email marked the start of a quiet revolution within the boutique. She scheduled team meetings, not to reprimand but to listen. The staff shared their own observations about how the pressure to maintain exclusivity often left them feeling disconnected from customers. One employee, Maria, shared a particularly moving story about a young woman who had come in looking for a dress for her first job interview. Though the woman couldn't afford the boutique's high-end offerings, Maria had taken the time to help her find inspiration and gave her tips on dressing professionally. Weeks later, the woman had returned, not as a customer but as a friend, sharing the news that she had landed the job. Stories like this reminded Clarissa of the boutique's true potential, not as a status symbol but as a place where people could find not just luxury items but inspiration, confidence, and connection. Clarissa began implementing new policies. Every customer, no matter their appearance or perceived status, was to be treated with the same warmth and respect. Staff were encouraged to focus on building relationships rather than simply making sales. The changes soon became noticeable. Regular customers commented on how much more welcoming the boutique felt. New customers, once hesitant to enter such an intimidating space, began to trickle in. And Clarissa? She blossomed into a leader who not only managed her team but inspired them. One afternoon, Clarissa received a surprising email from a prominent fashion magazine. They had heard about the changes at the boutique and wanted to feature her in an article about redefining luxury in the modern age. The article, titled "Kindness as Couture: How One Boutique is Leading a Fashion Revolution," painted a vivid picture of the boutique's transformation. It highlighted not only the changes in customer experience, but also the profound impact on the staff's morale and sense of purpose. The story caught fire. Bloggers, influencers, and even other luxury retailers began discussing the piece, sparking a broader conversation about the role of empathy and inclusivity in high fashion. Meanwhile, Melania Trump had also reflected on her experience at the boutique. Over dinner with close friends, she shared the story not as a tale of vindication, but as an example of how grace could inspire change. "I could have retaliated," she admitted, "but what would that have accomplished?" Sometimes, when you show kindness in the face of judgment, you give people the opportunity to grow. Her friends, moved by her words, began to share their own experiences of how small acts of compassion had created ripples of change in their lives. The boutique's transformation became a case study for business schools and a topic of discussion at industry conferences. Clarissa was invited to speak on panels about customer experience and the power of leading with empathy. During one such event, she shared the story of Melania's visit and the profound lesson it had taught her. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom approached her afterward to share their own stories of judgment and redemption. This story is a powerful reminder that kindness has the power to change lives in ways we may never fully realize. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone's unexpected compassion made a lasting impact on you? Or perhaps you've had the chance to extend grace to someone else? We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories in the comments below. How has kindness shaped your life? If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect on your own faith and share it with someone who might need it today. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that inspire, challenge, and bring us closer together.